Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's Friday afternoon. Hope you are getting off of work, heading home, about to enjoy the weekend. I'm Brian Manning, and I'm a political asylum lawyer. For those of you who don't know me, my law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers, and it's based in Houston, Texas. But we help people all over the country to secure their future in the United States through asylum. Doesn't matter where you are. We have clients from coast to coast, Texas, New York, California, Georgia, Florida, all over the place. I'm going to take your questions. So go ahead and start leaving your questions. Hello on YouTube, Facebook. Hey there. I'm going to take your questions. So go ahead and leave them in the comments section. But first, and on TikTok, hello to you as well. I want to say a couple words about why your asylum interview is going to take an eternity. Now, I'm going to make a more detailed video about this that I think you're going to find interesting, that you'll find on my YouTube channel in a couple days or a few days. Go follow me there, by the way. If you're watching on TikTok or on Facebook, go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. And those of you who've been following me on social media for a while may note that that's a different name. We used to be called Manning Asylum Law. We changed our name. We just rebranded. Now it's Political Asylum Lawyers. That's our website URL now, politicalasylumlawyers.com. And that's the name of the YouTube channel. So go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers, and you'll see all kinds of videos, including some really detailed training videos that are going to help you win your asylum case, whether you're with USCIS waiting for an affirmative asylum interview or about to apply, or you're in immigration court proceedings and you're going to be fighting your case out in front of the immigration judge. All right. Couple of words about this topic of why your interview is going to take so long with the asylum office. And then I'm going to answer your questions. So go ahead and leave the questions. By the way, tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to see where folks are tuning in from. So let me know in the comments what city and state you're in. And if you want to let me know what country you're from too, I love seeing that information. So asylum interviews take a long time. The average is probably about 3 hours. Right now, I'm talking not about immigration court, but rather at the asylum office for affirmative asylum interviews. Okay. Thanks, Donna, in New York City. Awesome. The greatest city in the world, as they say in the musical Hamilton. I love New York. So yeah, maybe 3 hours on average is probably about how long an asylum interview takes. It's long. It takes a long time. And when I was an asylum officer, I did one time that I think was like 7 hours. And sometimes they take even longer, and the applicant has to come back for a second interview, a follow-up interview, which is obviously painful and traumatic. And hey, Aram, Mohammed, thanks for saying hello on YouTube. So yeah, routinely asylum interviews will stretch to, 4, 5, 6 hours. It's not uncommon at all. And the question is why? Like, it should not take that long for someone to tell their story, right? And explain what's happened and why they're afraid to go back to their country. Because that's what asylum is about, right? It's like those two things. It's what's happened to you and what is it that makes you think that you're at risk if you had to go back to your country. On YouTube, Game Space says, "I'm going to be hiring you for this week." Great. Look forward to it. If you've already done a consultation with us, great, hire us. If not, that's where it starts with an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum lawyers. Okay. On YouTube and Facebook, right above my head, excuse me, there's a telephone number you can call to get in touch with us to schedule your asylum strategy session with one of our asylum lawyers. On TikTok, go to my profile and you'll see the phone number to call. Okay. So I was saying that it takes hours, right? Asylum interviews take hours. Why? It shouldn't take that long to explain what's going on and give the officer the information they need to see that you should get asylum. So why does it take so long? There's multiple reasons, but a few of them are that some officers aren't that good at this aspect of the job. Interviewing is a skill. It actually takes training, and it takes practice and attention to detail to get good at interviewing someone, to get good at analyzing the situation and coming up with the questions and framing them and articulating them in a way that is most likely to let the applicant understand what information you're asking for so they can give it to you in a way that, it's useful for you. So interviewing is hard. It's a skill that takes time to cultivate and develop. So some officers just aren't that good at it. And then, another thing is like technology. USCIS is not real forward leaning when it comes to tech. They don't have the best systems, the best softwares. Stuff is constantly messing up during interviews, like the computers are breaking, or they just don't have the kind of technology that would help them to maximize efficiencies and get the interview done quickly. Before I go on, let me just say another super nice comment on YouTube. Thank you. Just Fat says, watching from Mesa, Arizona. Hey, so happy that you're representing me. I love your vast experience in asylum cases. This gives confidence that I got the right person to lead me in this journey. I couldn't ask for a better endorsement. Very, very kind words. Thank you for taking the time to say them. I appreciate that, Just Fat. We're honored to have you as a client. I'm looking forward to seeing your case move forward and you getting asylum. Thank you for the comment. Appreciate it. So, another reason that asylum cases can take a long time can be that the officer has to ask certain questions related to security. If certain things come up in a case, if something is mentioned, or if there's something in the documents or in the background checks that makes the officer think that a bar to asylum may be implicated, maybe an issue in your case, then the officer has to go through a series of questions. They have to ask a bunch of questions about it. Okay. And this often happens for people from certain countries where there's like conflict going on, or like fighting. So, if there's someone who's coming from somewhere where there's been like war recently, like Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, they're going to get a lot of questions related to security. Like basically, are you a terrorist or a criminal, asked 100 different ways. Everyone gets some questions like that. They're called the bar questions that officers have to ask everyone. But if there's anything specific to you that makes them think, oh, this person may have an issue, or just being from a country and having been around that kind of conflict means that they're going to ask you a lot of questions like this. Okay. And so if the officer thinks, oh yeah, there really looks like there may be a bar, the person may be barred from asylum under the laws related to like terrorism and that kind of thing, then they have to go into what's called sworn statement mode, where they have to take like a verbatim record. They have to type out basically every single thing you say and everything they say. And then they have to, at the end of the interview, they have to read that back to you. They have to literally print out their notes and read all that back to you. And that could be 3 hours worth of conversation. They have to read back to you. And you have to read it and sign off if you agree that it's an accurate representation of what was said. So that can take forever. It can take many, many hours. Now, speaking of taking notes, that's the thing that I have seized on, and I want to just shout from the rooftops that this is something that I think USCIS should do to make a huge impact immediately on the asylum backlog and just providing for better quality asylum interviews. They need to stop having the officer take notes, type out notes. So at your interview, the officer is taking notes. They're typing out. They don't have to type out unless a bar is potentially at issue. They don't have to type every single word, but they have to sort of summarize everything you say and everything that they say. And that's time consuming. Okay. That takes time. So you'll constantly at your interview hear the officer going, oh, wait, hold on. I got to catch up on my notes. Hold on. You'll say a sentence and they'll say, wait, pause, hold on. And they'll type. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Type. Wait. Type. Okay, go ahead. And this goes on and on like this. It's super annoying. You, as the applicant, you feel like you can't articulate yourself. Like you can't get more than a few sentences out without being interrupted. So the officer can wait. I got to catch up with my notes. And this makes it hard to sort of stay on track and keep your mind on the train of thought and to go where you want to go in explaining your case. So it makes for a bad interview. It makes it very hard on the applicant. And it's also terrible for the officers. Officers hate having to type to take notes. It's one of the worst things about being an asylum officer. You'll come away from a 5-hour interview and your hands are just aching. I know this. If you didn't know, I used to be an asylum officer at the Houston Asylum Office. So I know this. This is the bane of the existence of many asylum officers, having to type. It's exhausting and it distracts you from like being able to think fully about the case, to like analyze what's being said and plan your next question in response to what's being said. So it stinks. Now, this could easily be solved just by going to audio recordings. Okay. You can audio record this instead of having the officer take notes. and it would be much, much more accurate because I can tell you the typed out notes are often not accurate. First, the officer doesn't have to like actually type what's actually being said. It's more like a summary, like an accurate representation, which is not the same as an actual transcript. So they're not accurate in that sense. Some of the officers don't do a good job at this, and so their notes are just terrible. And you can't even, and sometimes you can't even tell like what's happened at the interview or what's said during a key part because the notes are poor. So an audio recording would not have that problem. And also there's softwares now that are not that expensive that you can use that audio record and at the same time they transcribe, they make a transcript of everything that's being said, and they're pretty accurate. They would be more accurate than like a transcript or than the officer's notes. So this would save a ton of time. I think honestly that having to take notes probably extends the interview time by maybe like 40%, something like that, maybe even 50%. So instead of having the officer do just 2 interviews a day, which is what they normally do, if we didn't have to take notes, if they didn't have to take notes, then they could probably get 3 interviews in one day. Okay. Instead of 2. And that would cut down the overall backlog. We would have more cases getting interviews sooner, and the whole system would just go faster. Everything would be quicker, and we could cut into that backlog that actually right now is still growing. People are waiting, as you know, years to get an asylum interview. By the way, if you've been waiting for years, you should sue the government. I think at the 3-year mark, if you've been waiting more than 3 years to get an interview or to get a decision after having applied, you should sue the government to make them take action in your case, because you're entitled to that. You're entitled to have the government take action on your claim for an immigration benefit. We help people do that all the time. So if you want to call to talk about that, let's do it. Give me a call on YouTube and Facebook. The number's up here. On TikTok, go to my profile and you'll see the number to call to schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum lawyers so that we can talk about your case, tell you whether we might be able to help you, both in terms of winning your case and in terms of speeding it up. If you've been waiting for several years for an interview at USCIS, we may be able to sue and move it forward. And so you can get your interview and get asylum and get on with your life, right? So that's what I wanted to say, is that your interview is going to take a long time. Be ready for it to take several hours. There's lots of reasons for it, but one thing is the note taking, which could be easily done away with and would be better for everyone. All right. Okay, let's get to the questions. I'm going to go to YouTube. We've got Faisal Abdullahi. Sorry if I mispronounced it. Faisal says, "Hi, can you help me file my asylum application in Minnesota?" You bet. Absolutely. We have clients all over the country, including Minnesota. In fact, we had an interview at an asylum interview in Minnesota this week. It was this week. Yeah. The Chicago Asylum Office has responsibility for Minnesota. And for people that live in Minnesota, they sometimes send officers from Chicago, from the Asylum Office in Chicago, out to what they call the USCIS field office in Minneapolis. So we had an interview there this week, and that's where yours probably will be. So yeah, we can help you with that. We'll file it online. Everyone listening to this, if you're going to apply for asylum with USCIS, do it online. Don't apply on paper. Applying online is much, much faster and just better. Okay. Apply online. But yeah, Faisal, the first step is to schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum lawyers. So give us a call. Faisal, on YouTube, you can see it up there, the number. And on TikTok, go to my profile page and you'll see it there. So thanks for leaving the comment. Let's go over to Donna said she's in New York. Great. Let's go over to TikTok. We've got all right. So Bella or Bella says, "Hi, what do I have to do if the court didn't grant me asylum?" So it depends whether they made an order of deportation or they dismissed the case. Okay. Most of the time, if you applied for asylum and you don't get it, you get an order of deportation where the judge says you're going to be deported. You have to leave. But if you get that decision, you can appeal. There's 30 days to make an appeal. Okay. To what's called the Board of Immigration Appeals. This is a body or an entity within the Department of Justice. It's within the Department of Justice that handles appeals from immigration judge decisions. You have 30 days again to file that appeal. So you got to act quickly. Okay. And they can basically say, listen, the judge messed up. He needs to show, or she needs to reconsider this certain thing. Yeah, and you might end up winning your case. So if you think the judge messed up or made some kind of error, then yeah, you should talk to an asylum lawyer about appealing your case. We would love to help people do that. So give us a call if you want to talk with us about appealing. But again, you got to act quickly because you only have 30 days from the date on the judge's order. That's the date that matters for counting the 30 days. Is on the order it'll say date and have a date. That's you count 30 days from that date to know when your deadline is to be able to appeal. And then what happens if you get a negative decision from the Board of Immigration Appeals? You can appeal that decision. So basically, after a negative decision from the immigration judge, there's two levels of appeals that you can take to keep fighting your case. And you can probably keep fighting it for years. Because both of those appeals with the Board of Immigration Appeals and then the next level up above that is a federal court of appeals. Those both take quite a while. So you can probably fight your case for quite a while is the point. Okay. Thank you for asking. Let's go. Let's see if we have Facebook questions. We've got MGN Media, Seattle, Washington, from East Africa, Kenya. Great. I've been to Kenya. It's a beautiful country. Oh, good question. So on YouTube, we've got a question. By the way, if you're watching on TikTok or Facebook, go over to YouTube, follow me. It's search for political asylum lawyers. You're going to find detailed videos about things that are going to help you win your asylum case, including some long, detailed trainings that I think can be really valuable to you. So go to YouTube and look for political asylum lawyers and subscribe. Aram Muhammad says, what's the difference between decision pending and application is pending? So I think Aram's talking about when you go to, like, if you go to USCIS case status, and one of the things it might say is application is pending, and another thing is decision is pending. So Aram's asking, what's the difference? Well, application is pending means you've applied and you haven't had an interview yet. They haven't like actually considered your application or your case yet. So it probably means the next step is an interview. I don't know what kind of case you're talking about. I mean, I assume you're talking about asylum. But it probably means the next step is an interview. But if it says decision is pending, that's usually when when someone's had an interview, and now the next step in the case is for the officer who did the interview to actually make a decision and finalize it and process it so it gets sent out to you. So that's the difference. Is basically your application is just sitting there and you're going to have an interview. That's application pending, or you've already had an interview and now you're just waiting for them to make and mail you the decision. That's decision pending. Okay. Okay. So on YouTube, Beda Ahmed Mahmoud says, do you recommend to do a writ of mandamus? Yes. So that's the lawsuit that I was telling you about earlier, where if the government doesn't act in a reasonable time, you can sue them. And in doing that, you're asking a federal judge to tell the asylum office, you have to give Ahmed his interview. Because it's been too long. This is not a reasonable amount of time that he's been waiting. And this is often referred to as a writ of mandamus. Mandamus is, I think, a Latin term. Basically, the idea is it's when you're asking the government to do its job. You're asking the government to do something it's supposed to do. And you have the right to have your claim adjudicated in a reasonable time. The government's supposed to act in a reasonable time on any immigration benefit, including asylum applications. So it can be used when you've been waiting for a long time to make them give you your interview, right? But I think underlying Ahmed's question maybe is like, is it a wise thing to do? I can tell you for sure, like, yeah, it often works to get your interview. It's often very effective to get the interview. But there's another related question that I get all the time. Every time I talk to a client or potential client about possibly suing the government through a mandamus lawsuit, they always ask this question. Well, wait, is that going to hurt my case? Is it going to make the asylum officer who ultimately does my interview like mad at me? Is it going to make me look bad or too aggressive that I challenged the government, that I dared to sue the government? which I get. I completely understand that question because I mean, it just makes sense to be concerned about that, especially considering that in a lot of countries, it would be seen as like something you just don't do. How dare you sue the government? Like that kind of confrontation, provoking that kind of conflict with the government would just be unacceptable and could get you in trouble a lot of places. But it's not like that in the United States. So in the United States, we are a very litigious society. That word litigious, that's just a big word to mean we sue a lot. Okay. We like to sue. If you've been, a lot of you have been here several years, you probably know this, that we sue over the smallest thing. It's just not a big deal for us. Okay. And there are well, I'm gonna go into detail now. Go to my YouTube channel, and I've got a video about this, about whether it will hurt your asylum case. But the short answer, Ahmed, is no. It will not hurt your case. I'm very, very confident that it will not hurt your asylum case. The fact that you have sued to get your interview, or that you threatened to sue to get your interview. So yeah, so we do it. We love doing it. I love suing the government, and it's powerful. It works. We had an interview just the other day with an applicant that had been waiting 5 years for their interview, done by the San Francisco Asylum Office. And we sued, and like days after filing the lawsuit, they scheduled her interview like that because they knew we would win. When she had been waiting 5 years, so it's like at that point, it's very, very, very likely that we would win. If the government tried to actually fight the lawsuit to the end, they didn't want to do that. They said, "Oh no, we don't want to fight this." So you know what, Brian, if your client agrees that she'll drop the lawsuit if we give her the interview, then we'll do that. We'll just give her the interview, and you guys make the case go away. And so we say, okay, so we get the interview. That's how that works. It very often works that way if you've been waiting for quite a while. Okay. All right. Thank you for asking, Ahmed. On YouTube, Elvis says, I love the way you always educate. Great job, sir. Thank you, Elvis. Thanks for taking the time to make that comment. All right, let's go to TikTok. On TikTok, we got a question. Do you do divorce? Like am I a divorce lawyer? No, I don't. All I do is asylum. That's all we do. That's what I'm passionate about. It's what I know really well. It's where I have kind of a unique background. I think that makes me unique among immigration lawyers to be able to help people, because I was an asylum officer with the government. And before that, I was a diplomat. And as a diplomat, I did visa interviews. So those of you that came to the U.S. on a visa, you had, unless you had the visa waiver program, you had a visa interview, right? At a U.S. embassy or consulate abroad. Well, I did that work. The people who do the visa interviews are diplomats. And I was a diplomat, so I did for a while the visa work. And those are diplomats work for the Department of State, and that's the other main agency besides USCIS that handles refugee-related affairs. So, as far as I know, I'm the only immigration lawyer in the United States who has been an immigration officer with both of the two main government agencies for that handle refugee and asylum matters, the Department of State and the Department of Homeland Security, which is what USCIS is part of. So that's kind of where in my opinion, my unique value lies, is these insights and perspectives that I bring to help my clients based on that unique experience. And so I don't do anything else. No, I don't do divorce. I don't do anything else. I just want to focus on this thing that I think I'm really good at and that I love doing. I love the intellectual part of asylum cases. I love helping people. I love changing their lives. I love human rights. So I just do asylum. But thanks for asking. All right. Okay, good question. On TikTok, Lexindira says, should I apply for asylum online and then mail the form to USCIS? So like apply online through my USCIS but then also print it out and like mail in the form? No, it won't help. If anything, it could cause confusion and mess things up. Don't do it. Just apply online. And then that same day or within 2 days, usually it's the same day or the next day, you get the confirmation electronically that says, we have accepted your asylum application. It's been filed and it's pending. And that's like the beginning of the process. That's what you call a receipt notice. And when you apply online, you get that like the same day or the next day. As where if you apply by mail, it's taking right now like 6 to 9 months to get that receipt notice by mail. So it's basically taking the process is taking way, way, way longer if you apply by mail. So if you're applying at USCIS, don't apply by mail. Apply by online through a My USCIS account. I've got videos about short videos about how to do this on YouTube and TikTok that you can find. All right. All right. Let's go back over here. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, this is an interesting question. Prunell says, "Hi, Brian. Thank you for what you are doing. You're welcome. Thank you for commenting. After having the interview, what's next? Do they go to your country to check? How do they make the decision? What motivates their decision?" Interesting questions. No, they don't go to your country to check. In the very, very, very rarest of circumstances, they can reach out to the U.S. embassy or consulate in your U.S. consulate in your country and ask them to look into to investigate a little bit. But that's very, very, very rare. It doesn't happen. It happens in less than 1% of the cases. Basically, you can go into your interview thinking that that's not going to happen. So that answers that. The officer themselves definitely does not go. If there's something that they think is like really, really important that may have implications for like other cases, like they think it's like part of a huge fraud ring, for example, maybe they'll ask personnel at the U.S. embassy or consulate where you're from to look into it. So USCIS does have officers at a few embassies abroad stationed there, but not most embassies and consulates do not have a USCIS personnel there. But they can USCIS can ask the State Department, which is what I worked for as a diplomat. They can ask the diplomats to go look into things, and sometimes they can. How do they? You said how do they make the decision? Like what motivates them? Well, they basically take everything that was in your application materials and everything that you said at the interview, and they take those are the facts, and they assess those facts against the law. The different things you have. There's different things you have to show that you should get asylum, that you qualify for it. And so they're trying to analyze that. But in more practical terms, what they do is they have to write what's called an assessment. After every single interview, the asylum officer has to write an assessment where they have to type out, okay, here's the facts of the case, here's my decision, and here's why. And they have to send that to their supervisor, and the supervisor has to approve it. Their supervisor has to agree that the decision is at least what they call like legally sufficient. But you see, there's a template for this document called the assessment. Like they don't start from scratch; they start from a template, and so they're very similar, or at least the formatting is similar, and some of the language is the same in almost all of them. Well, now as an asylum lawyer, we use basically the same format, the same template when we write our legal brief. So for every case, we write out a legal brief where we explain the case and we explain the country of origin or country conditions information and how it supports your case, and we show exactly why you should get asylum. We analyze the facts of the case. We consider them and analyze them in light of the law to make compelling arguments about why you should get asylum. And I do this now basically in the same way that the officer has to write their assessment. Why? I want to do their job for them. Okay. My goal with our clients is that when our client goes into their asylum interview, we want the officer to already be thinking, you know what? Based on the documents in this person's case, I already think they're eligible for asylum. I already see how they meet all the requirements. And this filing that we do for every single case is what does that. Okay. It's a roadmap for how the officer can get to yes, or how they should get to yes in your case in the easiest way possible. You see, one of our goals in working with our clients is we want to make the officer's life as easy as possible. Okay. We want to give them everything they need to be able to say, oh yeah, this person, they qualify for asylum, and to give it to them. And to have that decision basically made up before our client ever sets foot in the asylum office. That's what we want to do. And so the assessment is something that we basically, we use that as a model for our legal brief that we're going to write for our clients. So anyway, to go back to your question, Purnell, the officer has to write their assessment, and this will involve looking, reading carefully through the notes they took during the interview and looking at your application materials and doing sometimes country conditions research where they're researching conditions in your country through online sources, through reports from NGOs, from governments, the U.S. and other governments, from newspaper articles, to see if there's anything that's relevant to your case. You don't have to show that certain things are happening in your country in order to win asylum. So it depends on the facts of your case. You can win asylum without needing to point to any country conditions information in certain cases, if certain things have happened to you or there's certain circumstances. But in other cases, you do have to show like that, look, people like me are being targeted for harm. Therefore, it's likely that I'm going to be targeted for harm. So it just depends on the case. But yeah, so what motivates their decision? I mean, I would like to say that, just the law, like they're just following the law. They're just applying the facts to the law, but they're humans. And so everyone brings with them biases and prejudices and preconceived notions. And, unfortunately, there's a lot of anti-immigrant asylum officers, way more than I thought. I was actually shocked when I became an asylum officer at how many anti-immigrant asylum officers there were who just are looking for an excuse to deny people. Okay. There's a lot of them, unfortunately. You can, in a close case, they'll find a way to deny you, but there are some cases where if it's presented well and explained well, then they don't really have that option. They have no choice but to approve you. So that matters. Okay. So how you prepare your case on paper ahead of time, and then how you explain it and how you act and answer questions during your interview, that stuff matters. It can make the huge difference, and it can be the difference between winning and losing. Thanks for asking the question. Let's go back to TikTok. All right. Let's see. So on TikTok, there's a question: how's Nunez Cynthia M judge rating? So how's the judge rating for Cynthia Nunez? I think I just posted this yesterday or the day before. Check out on my YouTube shorts at Political Asylum Lawyers, or on TikTok. I posted a video very recently about how to find the judges. I think it was how to find the immigration court approval rate. If you look back maybe a couple of weeks ago, you'll see a video about how to find your specific judges' approval rates if they've been a judge for a little while. The immigration courts are constantly hiring new judges, and so the new ones aren't included in like these statistics that are compiled by this nonprofit or part of this educational institution that keeps records like this about approval rates. So basically, if your judge is new, they might not show up there, but most judges show up on this list, and you can see what their approval rate is. Okay. So check out my videos, my TikToks and YouTube shorts to find this short video where I show you how to find this. And you can see what that rate is. Okay. This is interesting. On YouTube, Jerome Torres says, why is it important to cite in your cover, I think he means cover letter, about different court decisions pertaining to your asylum claim? Jerome, by the way, I don't know if you happen to be a Spanish speaker, you can check out my Spanish language stuff on YouTube. It's Asilo Aprobado. Okay. And same on TikTok and Instagram, it's Asilo Aprobado. Well, actually on TikTok, it's Abogado de Asilo Politico. So, but to answer your question, like I think he's asking in if the cover letter or the documents that you submit to the court, if your case is in immigration court or in the asylum office, like why is it important to talk about court cases, and how is that relevant to your case? I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think you should probably do that if you don't have a lawyer. I don't think most people are going to do it effectively. In fact, it could even be counterproductive. It could be damaging. But if you have a lawyer, then yes, the lawyer should write a legal brief where they do make legal arguments, meaning they say, look, the facts of this case are such that, immigration judges or the Board of Immigration Appeals and federal courts of appeals have said that under facts like this, like yours, the person should get asylum, or the person, or it's usually more nuanced than that. It's like, okay, look, um, in this case, the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is the appellate body after immigration court, they have said in whatever case that when A, B, C, and D happened, like these bad things happened to someone, that harm was sufficiently severe, bad enough to count as persecution in the past persecution. So, like, we would be explaining that what happened in that case, and then we'd say, look, in our case, with this current case, A, B, C, and D happened plus E. So basically all the same stuff happened as that guy in the BIA case, plus another thing. So he was harmed even worse. And if the BIA said that was enough to count as persecution, then this, in our case, is definitely persecution. I mean, that's a very simplified, example, but that's the idea: is that you're drawing analogies and you're showing why the facts of your case um, dictate a certain outcome, that you should get asylum. And so that's what we love doing. That's what we're good at. I think our lawyers are really good at that. But if you don't have a lawyer, honestly, no, I don't think it's probably going to be helpful for you to try to do it. But I think you should get a lawyer and have the lawyer do it. Okay. But let me point out that most lawyers don't. Okay. Especially for USCIS affirmative asylum cases, most lawyers don't write a legal brief or even like a cover letter explaining why the person should get asylum. In immigration court, there's a higher percentage, but still often they don't, which in my opinion is a huge missed opportunity. Okay. I think that you should always write the lawyer should always write a legal brief that shows the judge or shows the asylum officer why their client wins, why they should get asylum. Because, let me tell you this, when I was an asylum officer, the few times that this happened, the few times that I did get a good legal brief from a lawyer, I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you. I understand this case so much better than I would have without what you gave to me. And I get it. I see why your client should win. And you saved me a lot of effort and time that I would have had to have spent on my own researching this and coming to these conclusions. The judge and asylum officer is never just going to read what you wrote and say, oh, 100% agreed, I'm not even going to question it. But if you do it convincingly, you might get them to say, oh, this is convincing, I think this is right. Or, I'm going to do a little bit of research to check on my own, but this seems pretty good. This seems like they know what they're talking about. And you can really move the needle. You can really influence them. So, yeah, the fact that most lawyers don't do this is a shame. It's a tragedy. I was shocked when I became an asylum officer to see that most immigration lawyers don't do this. Most don't do really anything to help their client other than just like help them apply. Most don't write a legal brief. Most don't really help compile or get together evidence in a productive, meaningful way. They don't say anything at the interview or the court hearing that is actually helpful, that actually helps win the case. So they don't do much. Most lawyers don't do much at all. I was really disappointed, in fact, to see that when I was an asylum officer, just how bad most lawyers were. It's a shame. Okay. This is awesome. Sunny Chima says, New York City on YouTube, YouTube at Political Asylum Lawyers, by the way, says, NYC right now on I-80, Iowa State, driving toward Massachusetts, and listening to my favorite asylum lawyer live video. Awesome. Don't watch while you're driving it. Just listen. All right. Be safe. But I'm glad to hear that you're listening. Thanks, Sonny. That's a great comment. I've never gotten that before. That's nice. Thank you. That's cool. I do that sometimes too. So I don't know about you guys, but I have YouTube Premium. I think it's like $12 a month, and it lets you do YouTube. I'm not getting paid for this ad, by the way. It lets you get YouTube without any ads. And so like you can download stuff or like to save to your phone or your tablet or laptop for later. And it's also ad free. And it comes with YouTube Music, which is just like Spotify or Apple Music that's included for that cost of like $12 a month. So it's a good deal. And I watch a lot of YouTube. I learn a lot from YouTube. I love YouTube. Beta, who we talked to earlier, Ahmed says, my case is pending since December of 2017. Do you recommend to do a writ of mandamus? 8, 9, 20. So we're like 6.5 years, or no, 5.5 years. Yeah. Yeah. You, after 5 years, waiting more than 5 years, you have a pretty good chance for success. By the way, let me just add that I talked a lot earlier about mandamus, about suing to get your case, but very often you can get your interview if you've been waiting long enough without actually having to sue, but rather just by threatening to sue. So you can send a letter to the asylum office that says, listen, if you don't give me my interview in the next 30 days, I'm going to sue you. And sometimes it works. I would say rarely, definitely less than half the time, but sometimes it works. We had this work recently. We've had it work twice very recently. And one time recently, we sent this letter to the Miami asylum office, and our client we got the interview notice like we got the interview notice like a few days later, and then the interview was like a week and a half after that. So it was super fast, which is a reason that before you sue or before you threaten to sue, you want to have your case in order. You want to have everything laid out on paper. And so, as I was saying earlier, we always submit for our clients a legal brief, as well as other things, as well as evidence and country of origin information. And we do that even if you already submitted some of that stuff previously. Like when you, if someone hires us after they already applied, and then they come hire us, we still do that. Even if they submitted some of that stuff previously, we're gonna do it our way, which in my experience is good. So we're gonna do it our way, and we're gonna submit this, what we call a supplemental filing, to the asylum office. We always do this before we threaten to sue or actually sue, because you might get your interview right away, and you don't want to be scrambling with 3 days thinking, oh no, I need to put together my case on paper. You don't want to do that. You want to have the case already on paper presented to the asylum office before you sue or threaten to sue. Okay. Muhammad Hamza says, what do you think about Indian people who applied for asylum in the USA? A lot of them have been winning lately because, as you know, things have been tough. Things have been tricky and bad in a lot of ways in India, especially because of like religious violence, right, to minorities. Anyone who's not Hindu, if you're Muslim or Christian or other religions, you might have problems, right? It's been pretty tough in India the last couple of years, and so because of that, a lot of Indians have been winning. I mean, also there are a lot of cases from India that also win that are political in nature, that are based on political opinion. I'll say this. Muhammad, this is maybe of interest to you. At the asylum office, it's hard. The asylum office approval rate, I don't know what it is for Indians, but it's very low. At the asylum office, they tend to think that cases from India are fake. It's an unfortunate bias and prejudice, but there's a few countries that when an officer sees that the person's from that country, they open up the case file and they go, "Oh, India, fraud." A lot of them do that. A lot of them, as soon as they see the country, they immediately think this person's probably lying. This is probably made up. And so you go into the interview with that strike against you, and it's hard to overcome that, right? It's very hard. So at the asylum office, the approval rates for India are low. However, the immigration judges very often disagree with the asylum office. In fact, something like 2/3, 66 or 68% maybe, of cases where USCIS says no asylum and they send it to the immigration court for deportation proceedings, in like 66% of all cases that get sent from USCIS to immigration court, the immigration judge ends up disagreeing and saying, no, this person does deserve asylum, and gives them asylum. Basically, the immigration judges overturn the asylum officers all the time. And I think that rate's probably especially high with India, because I don't know what the rate is at USCIS, but I did see just the other day that in immigration court, according to recent statistics, the approval rate for Indians was like 50%. I think I just posted a TikTok and YouTube short about this very recently, maybe yesterday. I lose track. It was like 50%. So much for sure it's higher than the asylum office. The point is this: if you apply affirmatively and you don't have success, don't lose heart. It's not the end of the world necessarily. There's actually a decent chance that you'll win at the next step in immigration court. Okay. All right. So Sagai Mulal says, "Hi, I'm from DC. I came through Mexico border and I spent 2 weeks in ICE detention. I'm sorry to hear that. Should I write it like changed in TPS/asylum application form? Thanks." I'm not sure what you mean by that, what the question is, but are you where? I'm wondering where you're from, if you're eligible for TPS. Are you from Eritrea or Ethiopia? The name suggests maybe one of those. Yeah, sorry, I guess I don't understand the question well enough to give you an answer, so sorry. Why don't you call us if you wanna talk with us in detail about this? Call us, on YouTube and Facebook, call the number up here. On TikTok, go to my profile, and you'll see the phone number to call to schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum lawyers so that we can tell you whether we think we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. All right. Oh man, Donna says on YouTube, waiting since 2016 for your asylum interview at the asylum office. Oof, that's a long time. If you sue Donna, you'll very, very, very likely be successful. Okay. So what are you at? Almost 7 years, maybe are already at 7 years. If you sue, or even if you threaten to sue, there's a very good chance you'll be successful. So if you want to get your case, some people don't want to. Some people don't want to have their interview because they're like, you know what? I have my work permit based on asylum pending, and I can just renew that every 2 years. And maybe I don't have the strongest case. I'm kind of worried I'll get sent to immigration court and might actually end up getting deported. So I'm just going to chill. I'm good. I don't want to have my interview. But for many people, maybe it's you, Donna, they're like, no, I want to get my interview. Even if it means getting a negative decision, I just want certainty and I want clarity. I want an answer and I want to put this behind me and move forward with my life. If that's you and you're ready to get action on your case and move this thing forward so you can get this behind you and go on with your life and get certainty about your future in the United States, then we should talk. Okay. Give me a call and we'll do an asylum strategy session with one of our lawyers where we'll talk with you about your case and how we might be able to help you strengthen it and give you the best possible chance to win. And we can talk about this more about suing the government to try to force the interview. Okay. 2015 for Samuel Sapphire. 2015 asylum case pending since then. What should I do? You should sue. Just like I was saying to Donna just now, very high chance for success, Samuel, if you sue, if you've been waiting since 2015. So yeah, I recommend that you sue the government. All right. Game Space says, that's why you're my guy. Thank you. Let's go over to TikTok. Same here with same judge. Adjustment of status. Already talked about that. Okay, this is interesting. World Sun 12 on TikTok says, I got asylum. When can I apply for the processing time for a green card based on asylum? So when can they apply when you get asylum? The next step is to apply for your green card, or what's called permanent residence. And the question is, when can you do that? Like what's the timeline? And also, like, how long, once you apply, how long does it take for you to get that? Well, I just posted a YouTube video about this. Go to my YouTube channel, go to YouTube and search for political asylum lawyers. And you'll find a video about this, because there's a recent announcement about this, because there's a recent announcement where USCIS basically changed its policy for how this works. And now, long story, but in the past, you had to wait for a year. After getting asylum, you had to wait for 1 year before you could mail in your green card application. Recently, they said, oh, wait, you don't have to wait for a year to mail it in. You can go ahead and mail it in now, or anytime after you get asylum, including like the next day, whether that's from an immigration judge, an immigration court, or an asylum officer at USCIS. You can mail it in anytime. However, You have to have 1 year of physical presence in the United States after having gotten asylum for them to actually be able to approve your green card application based on your asylee status. Um, so if you send it in the day after you win asylum, for example, they can't give it to you then. But the thing is, they're probably not going to pick up your application form and look at it and adjudicate it, make a decision very soon, because the wait time, this is the second part of your question, the wait time is like 3 years. It's more than 3 years. It's like, I think it's 40 months for the Texas Service Center, and it's like 39 months for the Nebraska Service Center. So it's more than 3 years is the average wait time. So the idea for some people, they think, okay, well, here's what I'll do is, I know I'm going to have to wait a long time. If I just go ahead and mail in the application now, right the day after I get asylum, let's say, or a month or 2 months or 3 months afterwards, I know they can't give it to me yet, but they're not going to pick up my application and even look at it until it's going to take like 3 years, 3.5 years. So I might as well file now so that I can get my place in line, so that you can get in the queue, which means that if you do that and it takes them 3 years, well, it's still going to take them 3 years to get to yours, but it's going to be a few months sooner than it would have been if you had waited a full year after getting asylum and then applied, because you got in the queue a few months earlier. So you might overall get your application approved quicker than if you waited that year. What's the risk or the downside? If they happen to get to your application, your green card application, soon before you reach that 1 year mark, they might deny it. They might say, wait, you got asylum less than 1 year ago. It's impossible for you to have 1 year of physical presence after having won asylum. Therefore, denied. That's possible. They might not do that. They might put it on the shelf and be like, oh, we'll come back to this one in 3 months once they've hit 1 year. But they might not. They might deny it and say, sorry, no physical presence met, denied. And then you can apply again. It's not the end of the world. It's not like you won't get a green card. You can apply again once you reach the 1 year mark. But you will have lost the application fee, the fees that you pay to apply for a green card. Right now, as I'm making this video, I think it's $1,225 total between like the different fees. That's probably going to go up though in the coming months. So you'd have to pay that again, like if you have to apply again. So there's some risk in applying early before you reach the 1 year physical presence mark, but it's not a huge risk. It's just a little bit. It's not a little bit. It's a lot of money, but it's just money. It's not like you lose the right to ever get a green card. Okay. So that's how that works. A couple more. Let's go to what about Samuel, who we talked with earlier, says, what about people from Nigeria? I don't remember off the top of my head the approval rates, but it's actually, Samuel, did you hear my answer earlier about India? It's the same thing with Nigeria, which is to say there's a huge bias at the asylum office against Nigeria. There's a huge bias. When an officer sees Nigeria, they think, oh, fraud, they're lying, I'm going to deny them. It's very unfortunate. But I think, I don't remember what the number was, but I did see that at the immigration courts level, the percentage of approvals was something that I think I'm very confident was much higher than what it is at the asylum office. So same thing I told the guy from India, which was, it's tough to win at the asylum office being from Nigeria. Not impossible. We've done it. It happens, but it's tough. But there's a decent, much better chance in immigration court. Okay. All right. This is an important question from David Bravo. David, I don't know if you're a Spanish speaker, but if you want to see my content in Spanish and engage in Spanish, go to YouTube, go to Asilo Aprobado on YouTube and subscribe to Asilo Aprobado on YouTube. Okay. I do lives in Spanish on that channel as well. So he says, what about Nicaraguans and their families, et cetera, people that came last year through the border and got temporary parole and have a date for court yet? I assume you mean don't have a date for court yet. How can you help to grant asylum? Well, so when you come to the border without a visa, you get put in deport. If they let you into the country, it usually means that you are in deportation proceedings. The government is trying to deport you, and that's going to play out through a process in immigration court that you're eventually going to go to. It's a little bit complicated, a little bit tricky, David. If you don't have a court date yet, if you've never gotten a letter that says the government is called a notice to appear, and it says basically the government's trying to deport you for the following reasons. They say you're deportable, therefore you have to show up and present yourself at an immigration court to defend yourself. If that has not happened, or actually, here's a better way to look at it. If you search the immigration court website using your A number, your immigrant number, or if you call their immigration court hotline and use that number to see if your case is registered in the system, and if it is, that means you're in the system and you're eventually gonna have a hearing. But if it's not, it means that they haven't formally initiated your case in the immigration court, and you cannot apply for asylum with the immigration court until they do that. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply for asylum. You definitely need to apply. Anyone needs to apply. If you want to get asylum, you need to apply during your first year. There's a rule called the 1-year filing deadline that says that you must apply for asylum during your first year or you won't get it. There's a couple of categories of exceptions that you might qualify for if you file later. But generally speaking, the rule is you need to file during your first year. You can't file, though, David, with the immigration court if your case is not pending yet with the immigration court, if it hasn't formally been initiated there. And that sometimes happens. They just don't initiate it there just because ICE, the agency that handles deportations, is just overwhelmed. They just have too much work, too many cases, and they just haven't gotten around to sending your information, your packet over to the immigration court. Well, when that happens and you want to apply for asylum, you can't do it with the court. They'll reject it if you send it to the court. Instead, you have to apply with USCIS. And you have to do it, unfortunately, on paper. That's one of the scenarios where you can't do it online, which means it's going to take a long time. It's going to take like 6 to 10 months probably to get the receipt notice. But eventually they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, we got your application and we transferred it over to the immigration court along with the documents that are necessary to formally start deportation proceedings against you. And then eventually you'll get the letter that says you have a court hearing scheduled. Go to court. But David, to try to go to ir grano para answer your question, you need to apply for asylum during your first year. And yes, we help people do that in your position, whether you do or do not have a court date yet. If you do have a court date, you don't have to wait for that court date to apply for asylum. Okay. You can apply for asylum before your court date. If your case is already in the system with the immigration court, you don't need to wait for the court date. Okay. You can go apply. You can physically take the application materials to the court where your case is being handled, or you can mail them by physical mail. Okay. You don't have to wait for the court hearing. You shouldn't wait, because the sooner that you apply for asylum, the sooner that you can get a work permit based on your pending asylum case. Remember, 150 days after applying for asylum, you're eligible to get or to apply for a work permit that's based on your pending asylum case. So that's, for most people, that's pretty big motivation to file their asylum case like as soon as possible. The sooner you file for asylum, the sooner you can work legally. Okay. On TikTok, which country has the highest approval rate? In immigration court, it's Belarus. I saw this just the other day. If you don't know Belarus, it's a country by Russia that it was part of the former Soviet Union. And it's this dictatorial regime, this very authoritarian regime there, where there's like no political dissent allowed. So there's not that many Belarusian asylum seekers in the United States, because it's just not that big of a country. There's not that big of a population. But when they do make it here and apply for asylum, they win, usually. Okay. Badru asks, what's the approval rate for Ugandans at USCIS? I don't know off the top of my head, but in fact, I don't think I've ever seen USCIS publish data of approval rates by country, unfortunately. But for certain types of cases, including yours, it's pretty high. But Badru, people with your kind of case do still lose if they're not well prepared, if they don't do a good job explaining the case on paper ahead of time, and then at the interview they lose. But overall, no, it's Badru, you're going to win. Let me put it like that, because just because we're putting together a great case for you, and you're a good applicant. You've done a great job preparing. You're going to win. I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I'm confident. All right. Have you ever, on Akeem Martin on YouTube says, have you ever represented someone from the Caribbean? Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Samuel says on YouTube, can you help me in suing the government? Yeah, we love doing that. Give us a call. The first step is to do an asylum strategy session with us, right? Where we're going to talk both about that, but also about your asylum case, because we don't want you to get your interview. We don't want to sue the government to get your interview and then you lose, right? And then you're not as prepared as you should be. You're not ready. You haven't done the things to give yourself the best possible chance for success. We want to help people do both things: get their interview and win asylum. Okay, so we want to talk about those things with you. So I hope you'll call us to schedule an asylum strategy session on YouTube and Facebook. It's this number right here. On TikTok, go to my profile and you'll see the phone number there. Okay, and there's a link you can use also to schedule online. Let's see. What else? Oh, Mauritania. Abdi says, how about Mauritania? I assume you mean the approval rate. I don't know what the approval rate is. And have we represented someone from Mauritania? I don't think so, to be honest with you. And there's not many countries from which people apply for asylum in the United States that we've not represented them, and I haven't interviewed someone from there when I was an asylum officer. But I think Mauritania is one of those countries. We've done other countries in the region. Both I've seen those cases both as an asylum officer and as an asylum lawyer from cases in your region. But Mauritania, no. But I think some of the issues are probably very similar. I know the issues are similar to some of the surrounding countries that we have handled. So I think we could probably help you to put together a good case. Okay. Ahmed says, chances of winning asylum if you're from Pakistan, Afghanistan as LGBTQ. Well, it depends on what country you're a citizen of. And if you're a citizen of both countries, then yeah, you do have to show that you meet all the requirements for asylum with respect to both countries, or every country of which you're a citizen. That's USCIS's policy. There was an interesting court decision recently from one of the U.S. federal courts of appeals that said, no, that's not how it works. You just have to show asylum eligibility with regard to one country, to any country, not all of them where you're a citizen. Anyway, for USCIS, you're going to have to show both if you're a citizen of both. But if you're just a citizen of one, you just have to show that one. But there may be firm resettlement issues if you had like permanent residence in the other one and were there after you fled your country. So kind of complicated, but let me go back to your question. A person who's a citizen of Pakistan or Afghanistan who is a member of the LGBTQ plus community, yeah, you have a chance to win asylum. Definitely. I don't know what the rate is, but it's kind of like when I was talking to Badru earlier. There's certain types of cases where all I need to know is if a person is a member of this community from Pakistan or Afghanistan, I know automatically, like, okay, yeah, there's a pretty decent chance to win this case. But they do still lose. Okay, people that have certain characteristics from a certain country that make me think, oh, they probably have a good case. They do still end up losing sometimes, especially when they don't have a lawyer or if they have a bad lawyer. Because I got to tell you guys, even people with good cases that should win asylum very, very often lose. Because as I said earlier, a lot of asylum officers and even immigration judges are anti-immigrant and they just want to find reasons to deny people. And they do that. But yeah, I mean, Ahmed, we should talk. I hope you'll call us at this number that's on YouTube and give us a call so we can do a strategy session to talk in detail. I would love for us to hear more about what's going on with you. Okay. David, you said that we do have a notice to appear. Okay. It's not quite as simple as that. What matters is whether a copy of that notice to appear has been filed with the immigration court. So what you need to do is you need to call the immigration court and be like, hey, here's my A number. Can you look and see if I'm in the system, if my case is in the system? If they say no, then you have to apply with USCIS. Once you get your application packet together and you're ready to apply, like the day you're ready to apply, you need to call call the immigration court and say, hey, is my A number, am I in this? Here's my A number, am I in the system? If they say no, you mail the packet to USCIS. If they say yes, then you mail it or take it to the immigration court. That's how it works. Okay. All right. Like to know about Afghan approval rate in Sacramento, California. It's pretty high. I just saw the other day that the overall approval rate for Afghanistan was much lower than I thought in immigration court. I think it was 53%. I'm pretty sure it was 53%. I thought it would have been like 80%. It should be. It should be 90%. It should be 98%. Um, so it's lower overall than I thought. However, Sacramento has one of the highest approval rates. The approval rate overall in Sacramento, I believe, is 65%. I'm talking about the immigration court. Okay. If you live in Sacramento and your case is with USCIS, you'll be with the San Francisco Asylum Office, which has the highest approval rate of all the asylum offices. Usually, sometimes it gets displaced by another asylum office, but historically, San Francisco is the highest. But if you're an immigration court, there is an immigration court in Sacramento, and it has a high approval rate comparatively. It's like 65%. So you're lucky. I mean, you're in a good place. You're in just about the best place to have a asylum case heard in immigration court. So basically, you probably have a good chance. But again, even people with a good chance do end up losing sometimes. So I recommend that you get a lawyer. Call us if you want to talk. We represent Afghans. I've represented a lot of Afghans, and I've interviewed them too when I was an asylum officer. I know very well the circumstances, the situation, and how to relate those facts and the country conditions information to the law and explain it in a compelling way that shows the officer or the judge why you should win asylum. All right. All right. With that, we're going to wrap it up. For those of you that celebrate Easter, happy Easter on Easter weekend. And for everyone, I hope you have a great weekend. And it's always great being on and talking with all of you. So thank you for taking the time to make comments and engage with me here. If you want to talk, the number is up there on Facebook and YouTube. On TikTok, go to my profile to get our phone number or use a link to schedule a consultation with us, an asylum strategy session. I'm Brian Manning again, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey. And we'll be in touch, and I'll see all of you later. Have a good weekend, everyone.